Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Guest Expert series on the Solve Network. My name is Shane Borza, and along with my co-founder and co-host Benjamin Goss, we're glad that you are here with us for another episode. These talks are the first and third Thursday of every month. We like to invite experts from different industries on to not only present something either that they do or they have an offering in, but it's also a great way for people to connect. If you are live on the call, you can speak one-to-one and get your questions answered from the expert. And if you are an expert, it's a great way to figure out how best to get your message out, connect with new people, and become part of our network of solvers. If you'd like more information on what we do, you can go to thesolvenetwork.com, or you can contact one of us individually. Either myself or Ben would love to talk to you. Tonight's guest expert is Grace Chang. I've gotten to know her very well. She is fantastic, does a lot of different things. And she has been in the alternative health arena for about 30 years. She comes from a nursing background, and her passion is validating alternative modalities so that she can look for the things that work and don't cause side effects. She's currently focused on the Naam medicinal yoga healing system to create permanent self-healing. And today we're going to be talking about how you can use your breath to heal yourself. And I'm really excited to learn more about that and welcome my friend Grace to the call. So Grace, take it away.
Thank you, Shane. So grateful to be here with you. And thank you everyone for being here with us as well. Grateful to share these ancient wisdom. And I can tell you that for the last little over 3 years now, I've been completely captivated by the Naam healing system. And it's because of the permanent healing results that I'm actually able to document in terms of with the live cell studies that I've been doing for the last 20 years. And you know, the first time I saw the results, Shane, I literally fell off my seat because I've been looking at, different modalities, whether they be physical ones or non-physical ones. And it was the Shakti Naam class that I took and was doing testing with different people. And we had maybe about 12 participants that tested for that particular class. And what got me was there was 100% elimination of heavy metals after one single session of the Shakti Naam class. And that was the thing that got my attention and completely knocked me off my seat. So from that point on has really been validating different parts of the Naam system, whether it be their energy medicine or whether it be their meditations in terms of sacred sound, or even just physical practice itself in terms of Shuksma and also Shakti Naam. So I'd like to definitely show some data that I've been collecting. I'm mainly focused on remote healing at this moment because, you know, through COVID last year, there was so much limitation around testing. I used to do a lot of big group testings and it was just not available. And so it's mainly just validating and testing the different kinds. Like, for example, I have data on Reiki, I have data on the harmoniums for sure, and also the Sharon Land, the Sharon Jean Land special, which is my research partner, Sharon Jean Land, and she lives in New Jersey, right? So she's the practitioner that would give me a session. I would literally be taking my own blood because that's the blood I have access to, and looking at that result under high power microscope in terms of the biochemical shifts that happen with these sessions. And so definitely excited to talk about that.
Come on.
And I think that's Faith. Hey, Faith. Aloha. So anyway, also want to try some exercises with you guys today and see if we can shift some things internally. So I'm going to use Shane as a guinea pig today, since him and I were talking prior to the session. And so Shane, I know you were mentioning some congestion and some lung stuff today. So as we know, we can access meridians, right, through the fingers. And so the lung meridian is actually the thumb. And a simple exercise to do is actually just to wrap the thumb with the other hand in terms of creating that circuitry, to basically help that meridian. So that's a simple tool that can be used. The other one, if you're not too congested, that you want to try with me is essentially putting your palms on the heart. I don't know if you can see me. And then doing a dragon's breath. Actually, it's the cannon breath. We're going to do an O-shaped mouth, and we're going to do pumping of the navel as well. So it's kind of like breath of fire. Yeah.
Get down.
And
Down.
it's rapid breathing in and out of the mouth only. Okay, so it's a cleansing breath to basically be able to clean out the blood in terms of detoxification. So ready? We're gonna do a few sets of these. All right. So O-shaped mouth. So throughout this breath, Shane, the navel is going in and out. So pulling the navel towards the spine, and that activates the pineal and pituitary glands. And that's an important gland to basically be activating. Those are your master glands inside the and I use this a lot just to energize when I'm not feeling well or whatnot, and to also be cleaning house. That's really important. And one of the things I look at in terms of the live cell studies is essentially the activation of the red cell membrane. And when I talk about that, it's really down to the microscopic levels in terms of circulation, right? How well are your chemical pumps working in terms of creating a condition where it supports health in those cells, right? Because our cells require the same conditions for health as we do. It needs clean air, water. It also needs food, right? It needs love, because we all thrive on love. And it needs to get the waste out. So until those pumps are activated, we have a lot of pumps around the cell membrane. And I'll show you guys a picture in terms of what that looks like. I'm gonna share a screen. So hang on a sec. And let me know when can you see my, okay?
I think it's coming on now. It's still blank.
Yeah, okay, still
there
circling. Okay, so on the picture, you're gonna see essentially red cells and relatively normal shaped, except for these ones that are kind of crenated. And on the right side, I don't know if you're able to see the spikiness of the cells in terms of the surface of the red cells. So these are literally your red blood cells under microscopic in the phase contrast, the way that they look under live blood microscopy. So when I talk about turning on the chemical pumps, that's what I'm referring to in terms of activating these chemical pumps along the brain. And this is an indicator in terms of detoxification that I look for when I look at the live cell in terms of, what is the biochemistry looking like in terms of an indirect effect on the blood itself. The other thing I check for would be, let me see if I can bring you to this picture here. On this left picture, you're gonna see A, B, and C. These are the darkened areas in this picture. How well is this coming on, on the screen for you, Shane? Are you guys able to see it?
Good resolution.
Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So this is a standard reading in terms of how heavy metals would show up. Now, obviously, I can't tell you what kind of heavy metals is in the blood, but the reason that it shows up as dark is because the cells that carry the heavy metal in terms of the red cells, the light in terms of coming underneath the microscope is not able to penetrate them. So they show up as darker. So this is a before session in terms of the amount of heavy metals that's in the live cell. And then this is an after picture after the same session in the same person. Okay, so this is a 38-year-old woman before and after the Shuksma Vyayam practice with the Naam yoga. And as you can see, compared to the before and after, you see a huge detoxification in terms of the heavy metals. And this was really the thing that got my attention about this system of healing. It's the massive detoxification, especially of heavy metals. And I can tell you from experience that heavy metals is actually really difficult to get rid of in the lifestyle. And it is the silent pandemic that is happening that not a lot of people are talking about, And I think I may have mentioned perhaps on the pep talk with Tisha that when I came to this island in 2008, at the time when I was testing people, I was so super stoked, Shane, because I was noticing that 90% of the people on this island did not have heavy metals when I was testing at the time, okay? This is only, 13 years ago, okay? And today as I'm testing and through the time span of I'm testing people, testing, what I was starting to notice was that, wow, now 100% of the people on this island have heavy metals in the lifestyle. And this is similar to what you would see in the big cities. So it's something that, globally, no matter where you are, it is something that is happening across the board for everyone. And people are asking, okay, so where does this stuff come from, right? How come everybody has heavy metals now? And if you think about the air currents, right, and how it brings rain, so everything goes into the ocean. That's kind of like where everything goes, in terms of toxic chemicals or whatnot. And then the evaporative process happens. So everything gets into the air currents and then it gets driven around the globe, and then rain comes down, right? And then it goes to the land. We grow our food on the land. Animals eat from this food. And so, and then we also ship things around the world. And I can tell you today that Hawaii ships in about probably 98% of our food supply, which is kind of sad to say, right? Because at some point during King Kamehameha's time in Hawaii, the history of Hawaii is that they used to be able to sustain a population of over 1 million people on this island without shipping anything in, right? And today we only have maybe about 300,000 people on this island, and we rely 98% of the time food from outside of this island. So that is the silent pandemic. And that's why I'm so passionate about this system of healing, is because I see results like this. And even just from the naked eye at this, in terms of before and after. Yeah. And then the third one is significant through COVID, is the fact that you see the rallying of the immune function. And in this before picture, what you get to see is the white cell, which is this cell. And very quickly, as you can see, they're changing shapes because these are macrophages. And what I'm observing in terms of these pictures that I've taken with the red and white cells is that there's targeted immune activity in terms of before and after. So this picture is the before. These two pictures are the after. So in terms of the changing of the shape of the white cell, it just basically shows that they are moving, whereas before the cell is completely stagnant. So after one single session of the Shuksma, in terms of the Naam practice that I was looking at with this particular write-up, it's a complete activation of the white cells, which is immune function. And then this last picture essentially shows oxygenation capacity. At a deeper level, what you're looking at is essentially the change in the electromagnetic field, because we know that there are charges around the cell membrane. So if you compare it to like magnets, right? When the charges around the cell membrane are uneven, what happens to them is that they tend to stack together, and that decreases the rate of oxygen exchange between cells in terms of what the red cells are meant to do, right? And with the after pictures, you can see there's a lot more space between the cells, which allows them to do the work that they're supposed to do, which is essentially bringing in nutrients and then oxygen, and then also eliminating waste at the same time. So, it's a huge difference in terms of for this one as well. So this is for a woman over 55. And this is the consistent result that I'm observing in terms of with Shuksma, is that it creates 100% separation of the red cells after each single session. Yeah, so I guess that's it for in terms of this piece. And then the other thing that I wanted to show is the result in terms of with the research I've been collecting recently on the remote healing. So I'll share screen on that. So hang on a second. So this is a new app that I'm using that was created by Jill Sickens, and it's been such a gift. And the reason for that is every time that I do a session, right, I'll take maybe 100 pictures for a pre-event and another 100 or 150 pictures or videos or videos for the post-event. And this is just a brief summary of essentially the data that was able to be captured. And you know, it's labor intensive. By the way, are you able to see the screen that I'm showing, Shane? Okay, so labor intensive in terms of, you know, analyzing data in terms of before and after having to look through that number of pictures. And what this app has allowed me to do essentially is exciting because of the indicators that I look at, for example, the red blood cell spacing that I was showing you guys, and then the red blood movement is another thing that I look at in terms of the pranic flow. Red blood cell membrane activation is when the chemical pumps turn on. And then the contraction was something that I noticed at the beginning of COVID. It's not happening as much now in the later parts of it as the virus is. So the qualities of what is causing in the blood is obviously different. The quantity of the white cell is another shift that I notice with the after sessions. They tend to increase. And then the motility in terms of the movement of the white cell, which are your immune cells. Fibrin expression is essentially, you can talk about it as the clotting factor of the blood. The other thing I look at it is for really inflammatory indicators. This is one thing that I look at. Microbiome is essentially, okay, how healthy is the microbiome inside of the blood? So, you know, apoptosis is spontaneous cell death. This basically creates room for regeneration. And heavy metals obviously is one thing that I look at quite a bit. Cellular debris, mineral debris are some of the things that I look at as well. So these are the indicators that I go through. And let's just take an example. For example, this event that happened on February 1st, right? This GIF is not showing. Usually we'll document, okay, emotionally, how is that person feeling before the session and how are they feeling after? And as you can see on this one, you can see that there is an improvement in terms of the emotion of that person. And this person in this case is actually myself, because I'm taking my own blood, and some brief comments in terms of what kind of effects I'm observing. So looking at February 1st, the spacing of the rails was high, and then the after session showed medium. So essentially what that meant to me is because there's detoxification effects happening, that it decreased the spacing of the red cells in terms of how they're related to each other. And if you remember the picture that we saw before, it would look something kind of like, okay, there's more space between the cells and now they're more clumped together. And that shows a higher valency expression of that cell. And they tend to clump. And then in terms of movement, it went from high movement to less movement. And then the other indicators that changed would be rallying of the white cells in terms of increasing numbers. And the motility went from medium speed to high speed. And then in terms of high fibrin expression, it went from none to low. So it shows also in terms of these indicators, a detoxification effect. And then with the heavy metals, it went from none to low. So there's detoxification of heavy metals from the before session to the after session. And so this kind of gives a view in terms of into essentially what I get to see in people's blood before and after a session. I see James has a comment. The breathing gave him a buzz. That's pretty cool. Yeah, it usually does. It's actually an activating breath. So I want to try something else with you, Shane, if you don't mind being my guinea pig. So I want you to put your hand into, let's see, a lung mudra. Okay, so the lung mudra essentially is you're going to put your hand one in front of the other. You're going to touch the thumb and you're going to touch your pinky. Okay, kind of like that. Yeah. And just put it in front of your belly right here in the solar plexus area. And we're going to do a 3-point breath. And this is accessible to most anybody. We're going to take a 5-second inhale, 5-second hold the breath, and then 5-second exhale. All right. So inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold the breath. 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Last time, inhale. Hold. Exhale. Take a deep breath in. Hold the breath. Exhale. So essentially what we did in 4 cycles of 5-5-5 is dropping the breath rate down to 4 breaths a minute. And when you do that, that's actually one of the secrets to turning on your pineal and pituitary. And there's a lot of talk in terms of decalcifying your pineal gland, right? In terms of the eye of the soul, or even the divine glands. They are actually master glands inside of the head. So if by age 8, these glands don't secrete completely, these are some simple ways that we can basically reactivate these glands so that your entire hormonal system can basically cascade synchronistically and harmoniously. And it's a good way to also be taking care of the other glands like your thyroid, your thymus, which is for your immune function, all the digestive glands and the reproductive glands. The science ultimately is about vibrational management. And so it's using the breath because the mind always follows the breath. And when we can control the breath, we also control the mind, which then allows us to then becoming into a neutral place with ourselves. And in that way, to be in a non-reactive place with ourselves and also with other people, especially now with anxiety being quite an issue in terms of a lot of people that I talk to. It tends to be something that they want some solutions around. So this is an easy way that we can basically tap into that calm place within just with the breath itself. And then the other thing that we use a lot is actually vibrating sounds. So I'm going to teach you guys in terms of an internal Om. So we're going to use something called a elephant mudra. So what you're going to do is you're going to make a fist, and then you're going to stick your finger, the thumb, through the index and the middle finger. And you're just going to put it on your knees, right? And you're going to take a deep inhale. And then just hum Om and create this nasal vibration in the center of your head, okay? Deep breath in. Inhale. So I just did 4 times. You would want to try it for 6 times. And by doing that internal Om, what happens is that you're also synchronizing the pineal with the pituitary. So that's the second way of turning on in terms of secreting, helping the pineal and pituitary be secreting synchronistically. And then the third way, which I showed you guys in that first breath work, is actually pumping of the navel. Every time that you pump the navel, that's the third way in terms of turning on those glands. So love to hear some questions from you guys, and yeah, see if we can play with the breath and the sound some more.
This is Tisha. That was an incredible experience. I'm curious, how is it that many of us, I know I can speak for myself, are not taught how to breathe? It's like we've been missing out on real breathing. What have we been doing if we're not really breathing?
You know, that's an interesting question, right, Tisha? I wasn't taught these things, and I can remember just a little over 3 years ago when I started with the Naam, and I was introduced to it by a friend. And, you know, they were teaching me in terms of some of these mantras and breath work on the beach, and I could tell that, wow, I really did not know how to breathe because I was out of breath. Wasn't used to pumping of the navel. And today it's like second nature. And it's because we've forgotten, you know, these were wisdom from the past. These are all ancient things that have been around. So medicinal yoga have been around for thousands of years. It's just being revived in a sense of every time that we breathe. And it's actually prana that actually creates the white cell. So when I was showing the data earlier in terms of increase of white cell in terms of before and after, it really just documents that, wow, you know, when we breathe consciously, we're literally creating our own immune cells, which is really pretty powerful. Yeah.
So thanks, Grace. I've really enjoyed this. And I've heard you mention 2 glands, and I've heard you mention detoxification. And so I have heard, I'm only slightly familiar with the pituitary and the pineal gland. And my notion around the pineal gland is that it is kind of related to the third eye and notions of, I don't know, insight or something like that. So tell me what the significance of these glands are, and why we're working with them.
Yeah, because I think I might have mentioned earlier that by age 8, they actually don't secrete completely. And this is according to Dr. Joseph Michael Levery's work. And so when the master glands inside the head don't secrete, what happens is that then the other glands will also not be fully functional. So if you're looking at a modern 40 or 50-year-old, you know, that's been walking on this planet Earth, right? And if the pineal and pituitary hasn't been fully functional since age 8, you can imagine for multiple decades that the glands have basically been on the decline in terms of not only not secreting completely, but also that they're not harmonized and synchronized, because the master glands need to be working in order for that cascading to be happening properly. And so if our health and vitality has to do with how well we are cascading our neurochemistry, our hormones and all that good stuff, how well we feel has to do with how well our glands are working. And a quick example of that really is, you know, you take someone who's going through menopause or, you know, midlife kinds of things, with those hormonal shifts, because they're out of whack, you know, it creates havoc sometimes in the body where we don't feel very well. So when we can have these ancient practices like the breath and vocalizations of the sounds and these micro movements that you can do anywhere to reactivate that cascading, you're literally creating an optimal neurochemistry and biochemistry. And think of what your trillions of cells sit in 24/7. That is the very soup that it sits in. And as we know with epigenetics that, you know, we literally can turn on our DNA in terms of, and the key really that you have is your biochemistry. So when you can consciously fix that with the breath and the sound and these micro movements, you're literally able to rewrite your genetic material so that you can be regenerating versus getting sick.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Any questions from you, Shane?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, I know that you were having a lot of the positions with like the hands, the way like the one you showed at the beginning, holding the thumb or having the thumbs and the fingers connect. So can you talk about the connection between not only like using the breath, but also the position of the body?
Yeah, so when I talk about micro movements, this set of yoga, there are gross movements, but mainly if you're talking about energetics, right? The highest form of practice for any practice, when you're looking at Eastern practices or even Western esoteric practices, always energetic. And we also know that, you know, in the planes of healing, right? You can be working on the world of effect, which is the physical plane, and you're just going to keep going in circles until you get to the cause of something, which is in the spiritual plane, and heal that part of yourself, right? Dissolving the thought seeds and the patterns and the conditioning that lives there. So essentially what you're working with, Shane, is the energetics, right? So in the hands, right, you have the polarities. So you have the polarities of through which each of the fingers, I won't go through them. Also the 5 elements, you have ether, air, water, fire, and earth in terms of the 5 fingers. You also have the 5 creative planets. You also have the 5 emotions and the 5 meridians in terms of in just the hand itself. And so by wrapping of the fingers, by using the different mudras, you know, this is a very familiar one in terms of Gyan Mudra, where you're just touching the index to the thumb. You see this a lot. But then you also know, oh, you can do this, right? You can also do this, which is the sun finger. You can also do this for communication because it has to do with Mercury. So it's a lot. And then this is Shakti Mudra, and it's a good one for the brain where you're wrapping the thumb. It's also great for the lungs as well. And you're going to feel whenever you get mad, right? If you just wrap the thumb, that will very easily dissolve that emotion. And it's a simple way you can basically take care of yourself. And these are ancient tools. You know, there's nothing new underneath the sun when it comes to these practices. Yeah, we're just remembering together what these can do for us. Yeah. So I know Faith is here, and I taught her some resets that I'm going to show you guys as well. There's a simple 2-minute reset that I use from Stanley Rosenberg's work, basically putting you, essentially taking you out of cortisol secreting neuro and biochemistry to secreting DHEA. So essentially taking you out of fight, flight, freeze into your ventral vagal activation, which is what you want, right? You're accessing the only healing mode in your entire autonomic nervous system when you do this 2-minute reset. So I'm going to do it with you guys. So interlace the fingers, put it behind the head. And I've taught Joyce this too, Shane, by the way. She's been using this, and I know you're doing it with her. So you're going to keep your head straight. Okay, just roll the eyeballs to the right for 30 to 60 seconds until you yawn, sigh, or swallow. Once that happens, you do it to the other side. And when both sides are done, you can put the arms down. Cool. So I use this as a gauge with myself in terms of how long it takes me to shift into ventral vagal activation, right? I can tell you that there was a point in my life where my nervous system was so unhealthy that it took me more than 5 minutes to basically get into ventral activation. Because for multiple decades, I've inherited unhealthy nervous system from mom's side, from dad's side. They both went through the war, lots of trauma, and also trauma in my own life, right? We're an over-traumatized society globally. And so a simple exercise like that can literally, you're rewiring your brain to be healing your nervous system so that you can access the only self-healing mode in your entire autonomic nervous system. So it's a powerful practice that I basically teach all my clients to do. And then the other thing that I taught was, wrapping the thumb 3 minutes, wrapping the index 3 minutes, wrapping the middle finger for 3 minutes. So you have 10 fingers, right? 10 times 3 is what? 30. So for half an hour right before bedtime, you can listen to the Hue tract, which you can get off of rootlight.com for free. And it's invoking the sacred name of God, the creator, which just means light, right? Hue is an ancient name of God for light. And as you're imbibing that light into the pineal pituitary at night, right before 30 minutes before you fall asleep, this is a good reprogram. And it basically helps you have some space between the limitations in terms of, okay, the little Gracie, the little Shane, et cetera, and to be identifying with your infinite self, the higher self. And then from there, be able to make some really clear decisions.